Our next speaker, Jeff's a friend and colleague. I got to know him quite well with the Casey Anthony case, but we had done some other hearings and trials beforehand, so I knew Jeff for a few years. He's retired from a 30-year career as a prosecutor in Orlando, Florida. He left as the most experienced homicide prosecutor in the history of Orange County and a veteran of over 70 successful homicide prosecutions. Among many career highlights was a successful prosecution in the case of the state versus Tommy Lee Andrews in 1987. I don't know that case, but it was the first conviction in the United States based on DNA evidence. That's pretty impressive back in the 80s. He pioneered the use of odor analysis in a criminal case described in his best-selling book, Imperfect Justice, Prosecuting Casey Anthony, discussing his 3-year experience prosecuting the case dubbed the trial of the internet century. So Jeff is running for state attorney for Orange County. Anybody from Orange County, Florida? No? Okay. Yeah, no plugs. Yeah, come on up.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Dr. Goldberger for inviting me and for the Georgia Aquarium for having us. This is amazing. If I tend to drift off a little bit, it's because I'm watching the fish back there. I just want to sit here and watch it all day. I have an interesting role in forensic science because I am a consumer of forensic science. I don't do the work, but I consume the product. And I've been doing that for my 30-year career as a prosecutor, going all the way back to, please forgive me, I have a cold. Going all the way back to using, in DUI cases and on into the 80s with the Andrews case. And into Casey Anthony. Casey Anthony was a fascinating. Okay, all right, enough of that. Calm down, calm down, everybody. Cool. The Casey Anthony case, which many of you may have watched, was a fascinating case from the perspective of the prosecutor because it utilized so many different aspects of forensic science, many of which you never saw if you watched the trial. Throughout the 3-year history of the case, I counted once, we had actually consulted 22 different forensic science disciplines throughout various parts of the trial. Many of them were exploring areas which in fact didn't work out, which I'll talk about a little bit, that were pretty fascinating in and of themselves. There were two basic crime scenes that were involved in the Casey Anthony case, much of which you've heard of, but I'll talk about them separately because the forensic evaluation of each is actually interesting in of itself. The first scene was the car. As many of you may know, when Kaylee was reported missing, officers noticed a peculiar smell coming from the trunk of her car. It was a smell that they recognized as being that of a human body decomposing. Any of you that have ever been involved in that in any way, or people who have been involved, will tell you that it's a very recognizable smell. It's hard to describe. I've smelled it many times myself. I'm sure that many members of our panel, probably all of them, have smelled it at one time or another, and it's hard to describe. But when you smell it, you remember it. But we really felt that simply having people testify as to the smell of something wasn't enough if there was more we could do. And being a prosecutor looking at forensic science is often the exploration of the possible. And you never want to stop exploring what is possible with science. So what we did was we took the odor and said, is there any way that we can scientifically examine this odor? I mean, we all know that odors are made up of chemical compounds, and our sense of smell recognizes some of them. I used an example in the book that I hope my mother forgives me, but the smell of her spaghetti. was very recognizable to me. When I was a kid, if I came home, I knew immediately what we were having for dinner because that smell, and it didn't smell like anybody else's spaghetti. It was very, very particular. Just as that spaghetti has a particular smell, so does a dead body. Sorry, Mom. But the point is that we know that it's made up of chemical compounds, so the question is, how do we analyze it, first of all, and how do we assign some meaning to it? So there were two really interesting forensic aspects of examination of the car. The first was the odor, and we talked about that a great deal in the trial. We actually found someone. The amazing thing about forensic science is, if you can imagine it, there's probably somebody out there that studied it, no matter how disgusting it may be. And we actually found someone who had studied, in fact, spent 10 years studying that particular smell. He was a fascinating fellow, Dr. Arpad Voss from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. What he was trying to do was to create a device that could do essentially what a cadaver dog does. Cadaver dogs are trained to recognize the smell of a dead human body, to use their amazing olfactory sense to find bodies. Normally what they do is you have a body you think is buried out in a particular area, send the cadaver dog out, they'll smell, sometimes can sniff out the bones themselves. But what he was trying to do was develop a machine that could do the same thing. Well, the first thing he had to do in order to develop that machine was to figure out what chemical compounds make up the smell. And he spent about a decade doing that. Now, we couldn't actually use his machine for this case, but what was fascinating is he had come to a point where he had studied the smell long enough to have a general idea of what chemical compounds make up that smell. So what we did with him is we said, is there any way you can take this odor out of the back of this car and analyze it? And he used a number of different techniques that are used in environmental science to analyze the odor from that car. Now, a lot of times the press sort of overstated what he actually did. Dr. Voss never actually said this odor is a dead body because of the chemical compounds. He never said that. The science never got to that point. But what he was able to tell us was, look, I've examined this car, I've examined this odor. He actually took a piece of the carpet. We sent it to him, and he analyzed the odor coming off it. He was able to look at that and say, I've been studying this for 10 years, and what I find in this sample is very similar to what I found from actual dead bodies. So it helped us with that. But what it really did was simply confirm what human beings were telling us, what cadaver dogs were telling us. But again, forensic science is the exploration of the possible, and he gave us what the science could give us. What to me was more significant from the trunk, which really got less notice, was a hair. When we examined the trunk of the car, a number of hairs were found. What was significant was that one of the hairs that was found was about 9 inches long, was light brown, which was the length and color of Kaylee's hair. What was unique about this hair was that it had what we call an artifact or a band on it, which has only been seen in hairs taken from dead bodies. So again, we took that piece of evidence out, we took what we could from it, it gave us what information we could from it, and all this information kept telling us the same thing, is that these particular facts are only explainable by a dead body being in the trunk of the car. We went on a little bit further to explore the odor more. One of the things we found was chloroform in unusually large amounts in this sample of air. Again, there was no explanation for the chloroform in the facts as we knew them.